The Star Alliance Training Academy orbited Archon 7, a strategic planet on the edge of contested space. In the year 2245, Lieutenant Mai Lan stared out the viewport at the blue-green world below, trying to calm her racing heart. Tomorrow would begin the final phase of combat training, the AI-driven battle simulations that would determine if she and her fellow recruits were ready for actual deployment against the Dark Empire. Still worried about the Sims? Lieutenant Trong Kai appeared beside her, his reflection joining hers in the reinforced glass. Lan nodded. They say this year's scenarios are the most challenging yet. Command is pushing for higher standards since we lost the Centauri outpost. Kai leaned against the viewport frame. You've topped every tactical assessment so far. If anyone can handle whatever the AI throws at us, it's you. Lan appreciated his confidence, but couldn't shake her unease. The training station housed the most advanced combat simulation system ever developed. The Supreme AI, as it was called, had been programmed with centuries of warfare data, creating battle scenarios that tested recruits to their limits. Lan had heard stories of brilliant tacticians breaking down under the pressure, unable to cope with the AI's ruthlessly efficient combat strategies. Lieutenant Mai Lan, report to Briefing Room 7. The announcement echoed through the corridor. All squad leaders, report to Briefing Room 7. Kai gave her a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Good luck. Squad leader, see you on the other side. Briefing Room 7 was already filled with fellow squad leaders when Lan arrived. The room fell silent as Training Commander Chow entered, his weathered face set in its usual stern expression. Tomorrow, you begin your final challenge, Commander Chow announced without preamble. The Supreme AI has prepared a series of combat simulations specifically calibrated to test your individual and collective capabilities. These are not ordinary drills. They are designed to push you beyond your limits. A holographic display appeared above the central table, showing various battlefield environments, space stations, planetary surfaces, asteroid fields, and urban centers. You will face 10 scenarios of increasing difficulty over 5 days. Success rates typically fall below 50% by the final scenario. This is intentional. Commander Kao's gaze swept the room. In real combat, the odds are rarely in your favor. Your ability to function under extreme pressure will determine whether you and your squad survive. Lan's stomach tightened. The commander's words confirmed her fears. Questions? Commander Chow asked. A squad leader in the back raised his hand. Sir, what's the hardest setting the AI can generate? Commander Kao's expression didn't change. The AI operates on 5 difficulty levels: standard, challenging, difficult, extreme, and impossible. You'll be starting at difficult and progressing to extreme by the final scenario. Has anyone ever completed an impossible scenario? Another recruit asked. No, Commander Chow said flatly. By definition, impossible scenarios cannot be overcome. They're used only for theoretical analysis, not actual training. Lan absorbed this information with growing concern. Even extreme sounded daunting enough. Rest well tonight, Commander Chow concluded. Tomorrow, we see what you're made of. That night, while the recruits slept, alarms blared in the cybersecurity hub of the training station. AI engineer Ha Vai jolted awake at her monitoring station, screens flashing red before her eyes. Breach detected in Supreme AI core protocols, the system announced. Security countermeasures engaged. Vai's fingers flew across the interface. Identify breach source, she commanded. External penetration, signal origin masked. Firewall bypass successful at layers 3 through 7. Vai cursed under her breath. This was sophisticated, far beyond the usual probing attacks they faced. She initiated the emergency isolation protocol, cutting the Supreme AI from external networks, but the damage indicator continued climbing. Training parameters modified. The system reported. Difficulty settings altered. Vi felt a chill run down her spine. Display modifications. The screen showed a simple but devastating change. Difficulty level. Override all scenarios. Difficult, impossible. No, no, no. Vi immediately attempted to reverse the change, but the system rejected her commands. Parameter lock engaged. Administrator override required. Vi hit the emergency communication button. This is Engineer Harvi. I need Commander Chow immediately. The Supreme AI has been compromised. By morning, the station's security team had confirmed the worst. The hack bore the signature of Dark Empire cyber warfare specialists. They had specifically targeted the training parameters, changing all battle simulations to the theoretical impossible setting. What's worse, the system was now locked in a security protocol that prevented any changes for the 5-day training period. Commander Cao faced the assembled recruits, his face grim. There has been a security breach, he announced. The Supreme AI's training parameters have been altered. Murmurs spread through the ranks. The Dark Empire has attempted to sabotage your training by setting all scenarios to maximum difficulty. He paused, letting the information sink in. We have two options: postpone training until the system can be reset or proceed as scheduled. The murmurs grew louder. Postponement would mean weeks of delay, weeks the Star Alliance couldn't afford with the war intensifying. Command has decided, Commander Cao continued, silencing the room, that we will proceed. Shocked expressions spread across the recruits' faces. Someone in the back called out, "You're sending us into impossible scenarios. That's suicide." It's simulation. Recruit, not actual combat. Commander Chow replied sharply. Consider it a unique opportunity to test yourselves against the most challenging scenarios our systems can generate. But you said yourself impossible scenarios can't be overcome. Lan spoke up, surprising herself. Commander Cao's eyes fixed on her. I said no one has overcome them. There's a difference. Lieutenant Mai, perhaps your class will be the first. The commander's challenge hung in the air as the recruits were dismissed to prepare. As they filed out, the whispers began. They're setting us up to fail. It's psychological torture. Command wants to see us break. Kai caught up with Lan in the corridor. What do you think? He asked quietly. Lan considered for a moment. I think if the Dark Empire wants to break us before we even face them in real combat, we shouldn't give them the satisfaction. Kai's face broke into a grin. So we treat it as, what, elite mode? Despite herself. Lan laughed. Elite mode. I like that. Spread the word. We're not facing impossible scenarios. We're playing on elite mode. By the time the squads assembled at the simulation chambers, elite mode had spread through the ranks. It didn't eliminate the fear, but it had transformed some of the dread into defiant determination. Lan led her squad of 8 into Simulation Chamber 3. The White Room was empty except for the neural interface chairs arranged in a circle. Each recruit settled into a chair, allowing the neural connectors to attach to the ports at the base of their skulls, the direct link to the Supreme AI's immersive battle environment. Initiating neural synchronization, the AI's voice announced. Scenario 1 commencing in 3, 2, 1. The White Room dissolved, replaced by the interior of a space frigate. Lan felt the artificial gravity, smelled the recycled air, heard the hum of engines. The sensory detail was perfect, indistinguishable from reality. Squad leader, incoming transmission, reported her communications specialist, a young woman named Tran. A holographic display appeared, showing a mission briefing. Their assignment seemed straightforward: escort a supply convoy through an asteroid field known to harbor Dark Empire raiders. Standard procedure would be to send scouts ahead, maintain defensive positions around the convoy, and respond to threats as detected. Something's off, said Huang, the squad's senior tactical officer. These asteroid density readings are unlike anything in the training manuals. Lan reviewed the data. The asteroid field was impossibly dense. Navigating it would require precision beyond human capability. "The AI's not playing fair," muttered Chen, the weapons specialist. "Elite mode, remember?" Lan reminded him. "Let's think differently. If we can't navigate conventionally, what are our alternatives?" The squad brainstormed rapidly, aware that the convoy would depart with or without their escort strategy in place. Traditional formations wouldn't work in the ultra-dense field. Ships would be separated, communications disrupted by mineral interference. "What if we don't go through the asteroid field at all?" suggested Min, their engineering specialist. "The mission parameters require escort through the designated route," Tran pointed out. "Yes, but they don't specify how we provide that escort," Lan said, an idea forming. "Min, could we modify our shields to create a repulsion field?" Min's eyes lit up. "You want to clear a path through the asteroids?" "Exactly. Instead of navigating around obstacles, we remove them." It was unorthodox. Repulsion shields were emergency measures, not meant for continuous use. But the squad quickly calculated that with careful power management and sequential activation among the escort ships, they could create a temporary corridor through the asteroid field. As they implemented the strategy, the AI threw in the first complication: Dark Empire raiders, more numerous and better armed than any previous simulation had featured. They attacked from hiding places within the asteroid field, using the dense rocks as cover. "They're boxing us in," Kai shouted as enemy fire struck their shields. The conventional response would be to break formation and engage the raiders directly, but doing so would disrupt their repulsion shield strategy and leave the convoy vulnerable. "Hold formation," Lan ordered. "Redirect auxiliary power to aft shields. Weapons, target the asteroids near the raider positions." "The asteroids?" Chen questioned. "Trust me. Fire on my mark." As the raiders closed in from behind, Lan waited until they were in the perfect position. "Fire!" The squad's weapons struck not the raiders themselves, but the asteroids surrounding them. The energy blasts fragmented the rocks, creating a cascade of high-velocity debris that tore through the pursuing raiders. 3 enemy ships were destroyed instantly. The others were forced to veer off to avoid the artificial meteor shower. "Unorthodox but effective," commented Commander Chao's voice from the simulation control room. "Continue." The squad successfully completed the escort mission with minimal damage, emerging from the asteroid field just as their power reserves approached critical levels. As the simulation dissolved back to the White Room, Lan could see the mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration on her teammates' faces. "Scenario 1 complete," the AI announced. "Survival rate 100%. Mission success 100%. Calculated probability of this outcome 7. Only 7.3%? Chen laughed. "I thought this was supposed to be impossible." "That was just the first scenario," Lan reminded them. 9 more to go. When the squads reconvened in the mess hall that evening, the atmosphere was a strange mix of pride and apprehension. Every squad had completed the first scenario, though not without casualties in some cases. "The asteroid field was nothing," boasted a squad leader named Duke. "Wait until you hear what we faced. A space station with failing life support and sabotaged weapon systems." Others shared their scenarios: planetary landings under extreme gravitational conditions, hostage rescues with impossible time constraints, defense against overwhelming enemy numbers. The scenarios are tailored to each squad's weaknesses. Kai observed quietly to Lan. "The AI is targeting what we fear most." Lan nodded. Her squad had always excelled at conventional tactics but struggled with environmental challenges, hence the impossible asteroid field. "What do you think it'll throw at us tomorrow?" asked Tran. "Something worse," Lan replied honestly. "But now we know we can survive impossible. We just need to keep thinking beyond conventional responses." The next morning, as predicted, the scenarios escalated. Lan's squad found themselves on a planet with a toxic atmosphere and unpredictable electromagnetic storms that disrupted communications and equipment. Their mission: locate and extract an intelligence operative with critical information. Standard protocols would have them establish a base camp, send out search parties, and maintain regular check-ins. But with the electromagnetic storms, such coordination was impossible. "We need to adapt to the environment rather than fight it," Lan decided. "The storms follow patterns tied to the planet's magnetic field. We can use them to our advantage." The squad synchronized their movements with the storm patterns, using the disruptions as cover when enemy patrols appeared. They developed a rudimentary communication system using the planet's natural luminescent flora, creating signals visible through the dense atmosphere where technological communications failed. When they finally located the operative, they discovered another twist. The person was actually an AI construct, and the intelligence was stored in a format that required perfect timing to extract during gaps in the electromagnetic interference. "The simulation is testing our adaptability," Lan realized. "Every time we find a solution, it changes the parameters." By the third day, word had spread throughout the recruits. The Elite Mode challenge had become a badge of honor. Squads began sharing innovative tactics, and a competitive spirit emerged. Who could solve the impossible scenarios with the highest survival rate? Engineer Harvey watched the proceedings with amazement from the control room. "They're actually doing it," she said to Commander Chow. "They're finding solutions to scenarios designed to be unsolvable." "They're redefining the parameters," Chow replied. "The AI creates scenarios where conventional tactics fail, so they're inventing unconventional ones." "Should we tell them," Vi asked, "that we've identified the source of the hack and could potentially override it for the final scenarios?" Chow shook his head. "No. Let them finish what they've started. I'm beginning to think the Dark Empire did us a favor." The fourth day brought the most brutal challenges yet. Lan's squad faced a simulation where they appeared to be fighting alongside Allied forces, only to discover midway that their allies were actually disguised enemies, feeding them false intelligence. The betrayal cost them 3 virtual squad members before they adjusted their strategy. "Trust nothing but each other," Lan instructed as they regrouped. "The AI is testing our ability to function with compromised command structures." They developed a verification system using personal questions only squad members would know, and established a secondary command protocol in case Lan herself was compromised. The paranoia was exhausting, but it kept them alive through a scenario that showed a calculated survival probability of just 1.4%. By the time they reached the final day, every recruit was operating on minimal sleep and maximum stress. The psychological toll of constant adaptation to impossible odds had eliminated nearly a third of the participants, who had to be removed from the simulations due to extreme anxiety responses. "Final scenario commencing," announced the AI as Lan's depleted squad of 5 entered the simulation chamber. "Calculated survival probability, 0. And the white room dissolved to reveal the bridge of a Star Alliance command ship. Through the view screen, Lan could see they were in orbit around a heavily fortified Dark Empire world. "Status report," she ordered, taking the captain's chair. "We're alone in enemy territory," reported Tran. "Long-range communications are jammed. The ship has sustained heavy damage from a previous engagement. Weapons and shields at 20% capacity," added Chen. "Multiple enemy vessels approaching," Huang said from the tactical station. "But that's not the worst of it. Sensors detect a full planetary defense grid activating. Orbital satellites are targeting us." Lan quickly assessed their situation. A conventional captain would attempt to retreat, using the remaining engine power to reach the jump point. But given the impossible nature of the scenario, she suspected that option would be blocked. "Scan for any unusual features in the planetary defense system," she ordered. "There's something odd," Min reported after a moment. "The satellites aren't moving in normal orbital patterns. They're adjusting position constantly, almost as if..." As if they're compensating for something. Lan finished. She thought back to their previous scenarios, to the patterns she'd observed in the AI's tactical approach. The AI always builds in a small delay when simulating multiple networked systems. It's a processing limitation. What does that mean for us? Asked Chen. It means there's a microsecond lag between the satellite's movement and their targeting systems. If we time it precisely, Lan turned to her tactical officer. Huang, can you identify the command satellite controlling the network? Huang worked his console. There, that larger structure at the North Pole, it's routing commands to the entire grid. Here's what we're going to do, Lan said, a plan forming. We'll use our remaining weapons capacity to target the command satellite, but not to destroy it. We'll specifically target its primary communication array. That won't disable the defense grid, Chen pointed out. No, but it will force the satellites to switch to their secondary communication protocol, which operates on a different frequency and has a longer processing delay. Min caught on. The lag will increase by at least 3 microseconds during the transition. Exactly. During that brief window, we'll execute a series of randomized micro-jumps, just enough to confuse the targeting systems without consuming the power needed for a full retreat. It was a desperate plan based on exploiting a quirk in the AI's simulation architecture, something that wouldn't work in real combat but might function in this virtual environment. And then what? Asked Tran. We'll still be trapped. One problem at a time, Lan replied. First, let's survive the initial attack. They executed the plan with precision born from 5 days of increasingly impossible challenges. As predicted, disrupting the command satellite created a brief window where the defense grid's targeting efficiency dropped. The ship sustained damage from the satellites that managed to fire, but nothing critical. Phase 1 complete, Lan announced. Now for Phase 2, Min, what's the status of our engineering lab? Operational, but on auxiliary power. I need you to reconfigure our long-range communication array. Instead of sending a message, we're going to use it to reflect the enemy's own jamming signal. Create feedback in their jamming network? Min looked skeptical. That's never been done. Elite mode, Lan reminded him with a tight smile. Make it happen. While Min worked on the communications array, the enemy vessels closed in. Conventional combat was impossible with their damaged weapon systems. Releasing emergency beacons, Lan ordered. Program them to mimic Alliance fleet signatures. You want to make them think reinforcements are coming? Chen asked. I want to create confusion in their sensor network. Between that and the jamming feedback, we might just open a window to slip through their blockade. The strategy worked better than anticipated. The combination of sensor ghosts from the beacons and the disruption of their jamming network caused the enemy vessels to adopt a defensive posture, creating a gap in their formation. Now for the final phase, Lan said. Plot a course directly toward the planet. Toward it, Huang questioned. That's suicide. The defense grid is designed to track objects moving away from the planet or maintaining orbit. If we accelerate toward it on a direct collision course, the tracking algorithms will prioritize differently. They'll think we're attempting a kamikaze run on a ground target. Chen realized. Precisely, but at the last moment, we'll use the planet's gravity well for a slingshot maneuver toward the jump point. The satellites will need to completely recalculate their targeting solutions. As they executed the daring plan, the simulation threw one final complication at them. The planetary governor, seeing their apparent suicide run, activated a last resort weapon, a massive electromagnetic pulse designed to disable any approaching vessel. EMP incoming, shouted Tran. Impact in 10 seconds. Conventional shields would be useless against such an attack. But Lan had been paying attention to the AI's patterns throughout all 5 days of scenarios. Reverse shield polarity and route all remaining power to the forward shield, she ordered. Then cut all non-essential systems, including life support. That'll leave us vulnerable to conventional attacks, warned Chen. We won't be around long enough for that to matter. Lan replied. Execute now. The ship plunged toward the planet. Shields reconfigured to absorb rather than deflect the electromagnetic pulse. As the EMP hit, the shields glowed brilliant blue. Absorbing the energy, for 3 critical seconds, every system on the ship went dark. Then, using the absorbed electromagnetic energy to power a single massive engine burst, they executed the slingshot maneuver around the planet's gravity well, achieving escape velocity toward the jump point before the enemy could react. Jump drive online, reported Min as systems came back online. Calculating coordinates. No time, Lan said as enemy fire began to reach them. Execute emergency jump, anywhere out of this system. The stars stretched and distorted as the jump drive engaged, carrying them away from the impossible scenario just as the simulation reached its time limit. The white room reappeared around them, neural interfaces disengaging from their ports. Lan blinked, readjusting to reality after 5 days of intense immersion. Her squad members looked as exhausted as she felt, but there was something else in their expressions. Pride. Final scenario complete, announced the AI. Survival rate, 100%. Mission success, 100%. Calculated probability of this outcome, 0.01%. We did it, whispered Tran. We actually completed an impossible scenario. The door to the simulation chamber opened, and Commander Chow entered, followed by Engineer Ha-Vai. For the first time in the entire training program, Cao's stern expression had been replaced by something approaching admiration. Congratulations. Lieutenant Mai, he said. Your squad is the first to ever complete a series of impossible scenarios, with a perfect survival record. Thank you, sir, Lan replied, standing despite her exhaustion. But we had an advantage. We knew the scenarios were meant to be impossible, so we stopped looking for conventional solutions. Precisely the point. Cao nodded. The Dark Empire thought they were sabotaging your training. Instead, they forced you to transcend it. Engineer Vai stepped forward. We've analyzed the hack. They didn't just change the difficulty settings, they specifically targeted your class because of your exceptional performance records. They wanted to break the Alliance's best new recruits before you ever reached the battlefield. Instead, Commander Chow continued, they've helped create something we've never seen before, a class of recruits who don't just follow tactical doctrine, they reinvent it on the fly. As they exited the simulation chambers, Lan was surprised to find the corridor lined with fellow recruits. Many who had failed their own final scenarios but had come to witness the results of the squad they'd started calling Team Elite Mode. A spontaneous cheer erupted as Lan and her team emerged. Commander Chow allowed it to continue for a moment before raising his hand for silence. The Supreme AI has been restored to its proper settings, he announced to the assembled recruits. But the results of this extraordinary training session have been recorded and will be studied extensively. What you've all accomplished under these conditions will shape Alliance tactical doctrine for years to come. He turned to address Lan directly. Lieutenant Mai, your squad has demonstrated exceptional adaptability, creative problem-solving, and leadership under impossible conditions. You've earned more than just graduation from this academy. Effective immediately. You and your squad are being commissioned as the Alliance's first tactical adaptation unit, the Elite Squadron. The cheers resumed, louder than before. Kai pushed his way through the crowd to stand before Lan. Elite Squadron, he grinned, has a nice ring to it. Better than Impossible Squad, Lan replied with a tired smile. The celebration continued into the evening, with recruits sharing stories of their most creative solutions to the impossible scenarios. What had begun as a cyber attack meant to demoralize had instead forged an unprecedented bond among the graduating class. Later, as the festivities wound down, Engineer Vai approached Lan with a data tablet. You should see this, she said quietly. We've decrypted more of the hack. The Dark Empire didn't just change the difficulty settings. They uploaded a complete tactical database of Alliance strategies. Lan reviewed the data with growing concern. They were using our own playbook against us. Vi nodded. And now they know that standard tactics won't work on your squad. You've become a priority target. Good, Lan said with newfound confidence. Let them try. We've already beaten impossible odds once. We can do it again. As the training station continued its orbit around Archon 7, the newly commissioned elite squadron began preparations for their first real mission. The Dark Empire had intended to crush their spirits before they ever reached the battlefield. Instead, they had created their most formidable adversary, a team that didn't recognize the concept of impossible. In the depths of Dark Empire space, a cybersecurity commander received the final reports from the hacking operation. The results were not what they had expected. Impossible, he muttered, reviewing the data. They completed every scenario? Yes, Commander, his subordinate confirmed. And the Alliance is already adapting their training protocols based on the results. They're calling it Elite Mode. The commander's expression darkened. Then we'll need to prepare for opponents who don't play by the rules. He turned to his tactical display, where the first reports of elite squadrons' deployment were already appearing. The real battle begins now.